All right, we're live. We don't have like a video or anything.
You don't have. We
No,
need
we,
to.
we don't have an intro yet.
You didn't even queue up the countdown?
We'll get there.
There's a countdown we can queue up?
Oh, I think you have to have like a certain account to do it. But yeah, you should. There's like a 30-second countdown.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Okay, I kept hitting it and it didn't
Stop
pop
it.
up.
You hit it once. It was there.
Well,
I
it
just
popped up
saw
for
it.
me.
It was?
Yes, twice.
Oh, it wasn't up for me. Weird. Okay, well, whatever. Cool.
This is a good
Yeah.
start. Welcome everybody to the Cosmos, where we don't know what the hell we're doing.
Yeah.
Not in this show.
It's
not
all
yet.
behind the scenes stuff people love, right? It's all the people
Yeah.
love that kind of stuff.
I mean,
People like knowing that we're just human all deep inside of our orifices.
Human all deep inside.
I mean, one of y'all is. Are we all human here? Because I don't think that's
No.
my question for the day. Are we all human here, or?
No, I'm not.
Enough, human enough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
True. All right, Dave. Do you want to start? Because you're the one who assembled the Avengers.
Yeah, sure, I can. First of all, welcome everybody to the very first episode of The Cosmos, a comic collective here on YouTube. We put together this kind of like Voltron force of amazing creators to be able to really just support ourselves, support each other, support indie comics, support comics in general, to be able to have a show that not only just gave us an opportunity to be able to peddle our wares on Kickstarter or whether we had comics coming out, but also to be able to be kind of like a voice for creators and a voice for people who want to be creators. We've all noticed here, the five of us, there's actually six. One of us had an emergency at work and couldn't be here, which happens. But we've all noticed people asking the same questions about how to be able to create comic books. And between the five of us that we have right here, we've amassed hours and hours and hours of knowledge on different aspects of creating comics. So that's kind of like our mission statement to be able to give back to the comic community, to be able to support each other through our own journeys, and also to be able to get eyes back on reading comic books. That's an important aspect of life that we think that a lot of kids miss out on because there's so much focus on the movies, so much focus on the TV shows, but forgetting that source material is something that we want to have people not forget anymore. We want people putting those comics in their hands and reading them. So we have over the next year or so, 2 shows every single month, and we are going to be discussing different aspects of creating, different aspects of comic books, different aspects of the process of putting it all together. How was that, guys? Was that a good intro?
You froze at the perfect time too, and it was like a cliffhanger. It's like, what?
Yeah, we're like.
I froze. Oh no!
What's up?
John,
Just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
that
I'm
was.
sitting here thinking, like, what? Wait a minute. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Tune in
It
next
was
time,
legend.
people, for the thrilling
Scary.
conclusion. Whatever. You may want to just kind of quickly refresh. It does sound like you're a couple seconds behind us, but I don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah, hold on. Give me a second here. Let me hop in.
But
See
yeah,
it now,
David,
but-
thanks for the great intro. Yeah, there actually are 7 of us. 2 of us couldn't make it today, so we will definitely be introducing John Dexter. And please help me out, Chad, with Hadia's last name.
Bjornbach.
Hadia Bjornbach will be joining us as well. There may be weeks where, there's only 2 of us, there's only 4 of us, but, we got a good cast of characters so that we can rotate in and out, because most of us do this for the passion of it. So you all can understand out there that things come up, including one of our co-hosts had an emergency at the job, and we certainly weren't going to make him stream from the middle of a muddy water main break. So
We could have.
there will be lots of different characters, but hopefully each week we'll be able to at least bring you, like David said, a topic in and around what's going on in comics, what we're reading, what we're enjoying, and give you some feedback from all of our years of experience in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do we want to start off by giving a brief introduction to ourselves so people can kind of know where to quickly find us? We all decided, for the audience out there, we all decided that it wasn't just going to be a show about, like we said, showing our Kickstarters, showing our books. We want this to be more about the production of the process of creating. But I think it's really important for the audience to, kind of get a glimpse into who we are and what we create. So who wants to start with an introduction of themselves and what they create?
I think you just volunteered yourself.
I just volunteered myself. Awesome.
Wow.
So, hi everybody out there. I'm David Whalen. I am the owner of Correct Handed Comics, correcthandedcomics.com. Don't get left out. I have been publishing comic books on my own. I'm essentially a one-man band where I write and draw and letter and color and publish books. I've essentially been doing it for about 7 years or so. I have my flagship title, The Offspring, where I just finished coloring issue 30 today. I just finished it today, and I'm going to start lettering probably when we're done talking here. And I have multiple one-shots, 2 100-plus page graphic novels, a 4-issue miniseries, and I'm in the middle of writing my second novel right now. So the creating never stops. It is a fun but sometimes frustrating process that I could not live without. So Correct Handed Comics, correcthandedcomics.com.
Awesome. And I'm John Westhoff. I am the writer, letterer, publisher for Part-Time Comics. I am a little bit smarter than David that I hire more talented people to do the art part. So that's the hard part. I'm like, what are all the easy parts? I'll take all those parts. No, yeah, I've been doing it for about 15 years. This is my second go around with the company. I am the sole proprietor for Part-Time Comics. Yeah, we put out about 4 or 5 books a year. I think I have about 36 under my name in the last 15 years. So I'm proud to be on the show. How about you?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Chad Perkins, the owner of Rolling Squid Bones, and I'm an alcoholic. I first came to
Wrong meeting.
This is the AA meeting. Okay, so I've been doing comics for about 6-7 years now. I just decided to do my own little publishing company. Rolling Squid Bones started as more of just for me to put my stuff out there and use that as a studio. But then I decided, you know what, I'm just going to work for myself. I have 2 comics out right now with a 3rd one in the works. I do Set the Hook, which is my flagship title, and Blue Lullaby, which is my first one. So then my 3rd title is Legend of Sparkle Dog, but the 2nd one is coming up soon. So, and I just hired John for a project too, so it's gonna be cool.
Nice.
I give him money.
The best way to get stuff done. Give people money and do the thing.
That's why John's here, because of the contract.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, okay. My name's Aaron. I guess my company's called Humphrey's Illustration, but it encompasses more than comics. Maybe I should think of it more of a comic company, but I just put it under all one umbrella. I did a graphic novel, Godlands. I'm in the middle of doing Knocked, which is what it says on the screen there. And I do kids books and stuff. But I'm like David. I'm like a one-man army, and like Martheus, one-man army. We do everything. Just because we just think other artists suck, so we just know it's not going to be good unless we do it ourselves. And so
we're not supposed to say that out loud, Aaron.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to say that out loud. Oh wait,
you gave away the secrets.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm gonna bleep that out. Hang on.
I'm gonna bleep that out.
Me? Is it me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. My name is Martheus Wade. I am a comic book illustrator, graphic designer. I technically started Mall Productions during COVID as a graphic design, advertising and marketing with a publishing section. But really, I've been in publishing comics for 25 years. This is actually my 25th year anniversary doing my comic Tales of the Toshigawa. So we were kind of like revamping, putting those comic books back out in graphic novel form, colorized with all the extra things that I had to take out originally, putting all those back in. So I actually work with my wife and my son, who pretty much help me do the coloring and sometimes the inking of some of my projects and things like that. But primarily, I do majority of the writing. Sometimes I'll get some of my friends or something like that to be able to come in and fill in as writers, being able to do things as bring in fresh takes on stories and stuff like that. But for the most part, yeah, it's mostly just me keeping the ship going and being creative. I've worked a lot from working from IDW to some small Marvel projects to some stuff at Dynamite to sketch cards to doing my own thing. So I've kind of been like a little bit all over the place, as well as working in the ad agencies and ad industry and working in sports and with NBA teams and the MLB team. So I've been kind of all over the place. I've been trying to be able to do as much as I possibly can before my time runs out. I feel like I'm on a timer. Like I have to be able to do so much. So
are you gonna die?
No.
Die, Chad. Spoiler, Chad.
Spoiler. This is his announcement.
No one sat down and explained this to Chad.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I just want to do as much creative stuff as possible and share as much creative things to people as I possibly can. And I just feel like that we have to be able to reach out while we got the opportunity. We always say put off until tomorrow. That's one of the reason why I want to do this with you guys is because we're all independent people trying to be able to do some great things out in the world and reach as many people as we possibly can. And I think that, a lot of us creatives, we tend to kind of put things off a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And that's what I mean by taking time to do the stuff that you want to do while you still have the opportunity, because it's never going to be the perfect time to do it. You know what I mean? It's just, you just do it or you don't. So.
Yeah, I agree. And I 100% agree with that sentiment. But you and I are, you just turned 50. Happy birthday officially on a live show.
Thank you.
And I turned 50 this year. So to have that feeling of, boy, I better do this stuff now is right in my wheelhouse of the way I've been thinking too, to be able to get all this stuff, to get all this done. I think it's important too to say out loud that we all have day jobs. We all do things, other things, and still are able to put out, a good amount of books throughout the year for somebody for people who it's not their full-time gig. So it's a very important thing to have that drive, to have that want to be able to do it. If you think you're just going to put out a couple books to make $1,000, every day on these books, then you're in the wrong business.
If you're going to see any money, it's going to be.
I feel pretty good because I had my midlife crisis approaching 40. I was about 39. I had just broken away from another company and it got the itch again. And I was like you said, if I'm going to do it, I got to do it now while my good years are still ahead of me. And have somewhat, some functioning upstairs. I had to do it. So that was kind of how I started my second, run at it. But yeah, it is funny how that mortality.
John, who told you were functioning upstairs?
Well,
who told you that?
Don't pretend to be.
Oh, go ahead.
I was don't pretend to be competent, John. None of us are.
I pretend every day, and nobody believes me. It's okay.
My wife tells me, she's just like, "You're not smart. Just stop it."
Stop trying to use big words.
Yeah. People, that means sophisticated. I'm just like, no.
No, I don't know. Yeah, I'll be 50 this year too, and I think of projects and years I have. I did my Gollings, that was 300 pages, so that was 6 years of my life. So now when I think of projects, I'm actually thinking, how many years is that going to take me? Am I going to be able to go that long?
Right there.
So like sometimes well, maybe my knock is each issue is its own thing. That way, if I just quit, then it's fine. You know? But that way, even they can be kind of late too, because since each issue is a complete story, you don't really need to read the other issues. Yeah, so that's kind of me, because like with a day job, I can't always get. See, I have to color on the coloring part takes the longest part, but I'm starting to streamline it.
We can talk about that maybe as a subject on a show one of these days. But coloring is the
100%.
unsung heroes of the industry. But
No,
to
letters
Ian's
are the
comment, you just posted, Chad. Ian, you got a long career ahead of you. You ain't checking out early, but I hear you. Better to burn out than to fade away, said Neil Young. So,
but it's also
I
a
am
good
the
point that
youngest
you can
here.
start this. You can start this at any age. You don't have to be 18 and start it. You could have a love for it and not be ready until you're 30 to be able to start putting books out. So it's
as a matter of fact, I think I wrote my first book was, I think I was 29, 30, something like that.
Yeah,
I was
around the same age too. Yeah,
My first book,
was a young book.
My first book was right out of college, so I was like, what, 21? No, 20.
Wow.
I was 20. No, wait a minute. How old was I? I was 18, 19.
I can't even
Probably
remember.
22. Probably.
Man, I'm so old, man. It sucks, dude.
He's running out of
Starting to like have to sit down and start counting on your fingers.
Yeah, I'm like, 1, 2.
Right.
This is like,
Hold on, I'm gonna take my socks off to be able to figure out the rest of this.
Yeah, no doubt.
I am the youngest here. I'm 34. Well, I'm going to be 35 this year.
Well, I
Wouldn't
remember
it be great
35.
for you? That's just
Oh, you're such a baby. He's a
I
baby.
know.
Little
I'm hanging
baby.
out
You
with
got
a bunch
the
of
old men on the top and the
yeah.
young
The,
babes
the
on
young men on the bottom. Yeah.
How can I explain this to people? I hang out with a bunch of grown old men.
grown.
I like old men.
and talk to them about
Don't
comics.
add any context. Just say I like old men.
Yeah, I like hanging out with old men.
But before we get
That's
there,
a T-shirt or something, isn't it? That's a T-shirt or a poster.
I made
something
it.
like
It's our new It's our new slogan.
that. All right, let's reel this in. Let's talk about a little bit about what like the plans for the next few episodes, and then let's jump into. We've all prepared questions for each other about the process of putting these books together, or maybe even it's just a question about comics in general. So in the next few episodes, we are. I'm really looking forward to the next episode that we're doing. Not that I wasn't looking forward to this one, but we are going to be brainstorming a 3 to 4 page short story using public domain characters. So we are going to draw from a hat. Public domain, good guy, public domain, bad guy, public domain location. And we are going to be live, not Memorex, but live, coming together and putting together a story. We're going to be arguing our points and arguing what the next step is and who's going to be doing what and where these characters end up in those 3 to 4 pages of that short story. From there, we're all going to be doing a live draw. So even the writers who aren't day-to-day, everyday drawers are going to be drawing a character again, picking a public domain character, but making them look more contemporary. So if we have a character that's from the 1700s or the early 19th century or whatever it is, we're going to be drawing them to what they'd look like if they were a 21st century character. So these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about over the next few episodes of the Cosmos. Really getting into the ins and outs of storytelling, even the fact of like arguing with each other about what we think the story should be or where the characters should go. That's a big process of a big part of the process of getting together a story that everybody involved can be proud of. So we're really excited about that process thing. Chad, you were saying?
I was going to say, and arguing, like that's a big part of the process is just the arguing with each other. And I think that we're just going to really, really, really touch on that.
Yeah.
I
think it's important to be able to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Lots of crying, lots of screaming, you know.
It should be entertaining no matter what, right?
Be triggered and just aggressively
I
start
like
foaming.
dolphins. He should be a dolphin whale.
And I did want to add thank you to the 17 people watching. That's a great, launch for us. In all my years on YouTube, I don't know if I've ever gotten 17 viewers at once. So it's an awesome start to a new show. We do housekeeping. Click that subscribe button, please. If you're watching this, obviously you're watching it on YouTube. We'd like to stream other places, but right now we're just on YouTube. So the more subscribers we get, the more interactions, the more we can expand.
Yeah. Yeah, all of because we're not going to do the whole thing of where it's like, where can you find us? You just go to the link tree down at the bottom. Like, legitimately.
Yeah.
Like, none of us have time.
We'll plug at the very end because we like to sell comic books, but
Sure.
It's not going to be all about that.
Right. No, it's not. So,
I think we brought up a good point there. Chad was bringing up a good point about the process of writing. How about I jump into the first question?
Sure.
Everybody ready? Okay. So, and it's kind of what we were just talking about. So, people have said to me that they have trouble, and I've heard this from other writers, from actors who are acting in a role, whether it's a movie or play or TV show. But they get to a certain part in the story and they start talking about, them as a person would never do this thing that the character is doing. So they've had the writer change it or whatever because it was just too much or went down a certain rabbit hole that they didn't want to go down. What level of a character has to be different from how you think? And how do you get yourself in a mindset to be able to write a character that maybe sees the world differently than you do or would do something differently than you do? I'll give you an example. A pretty popular example would be somebody like the Joker. The Joker is somebody who would do things that most normal people would not do. So how do you as a writer get yourself in a position to be able to have that mindset of, now what would this psychopath do? Or now what would this person do in that circumstance when you're not that person? How do you really create that character to be able to make them do things that you probably wouldn't do in your real life?
Ooh, great question.
Wow, that was a very mature question.
Oh no!
Get him off the show.
No, I need to go play with my toys real quick.
David will not be back next episode.
He will not be. I just had "What's your favorite pie?" Like that's all.
Blueberry. Oh wait.
Well, I think that's the challenge, right? And as you kind of mature as a writer, you get more experience. I should say, not even maturing. You get better at it. I think that initially I saw a lot of myself in the characters I wrote, and didn't think about how they fit in the story or kind of sculpt their true personality. So that leaves your characters feeling, very much the same and not willing to take risks. And then as I wrote more, I realized, you don't have to, even if you like a character, they can do things you wouldn't do. So yeah, again, the service of the story sometimes helps correct you, right? Like you need a villain or the supposed villain to do a certain thing. But like I've had, who would be considered the antagonist of the story hurt children. I would never hurt children. I'm a licensed social worker, but I knew that was what fit because I was trying to make the character seem unlikable or that they weren't very good at their job, which was caring for children. So but I don't think I would have been able to write that on day one. I would have probably just avoided that or written a more like you said, a Joker type character because they're evil and they do that. But that's not true, right? People are shades of gray, but that's just my feeling.
Yeah, I know the one. Well, before when I started doing my book, I always had the specific a specific story in mind, so I knew the end game of that story, and I just kind of worked towards it. Like I came up with the end first, and the antagonist was at the end, but so I kind of worked backwards in a way, kind of. And even now, like right now, I'm still working on that story, but we've added like a younger version to that story as well, a younger version of the characters, but they're still kind of working towards that end goal. So it's kind of like all consistent. The things that have helped me though on like when I'm helping somebody else write their own stuff, because sometimes I help some of my friends come up with concepts and stuff like that and characters and stuff, and they'll give me stuff and I'll be like, hey man, what if this character did this instead type of stuff. Is man, now I watch a lot of like, I don't know if this is healthy, but I watch a lot of true crime documentaries on Netflix.
Yeah. Great.
Like, getting those like perspectives from especially the criminals who are still alive that can actually access, and you can kind of go into what they were thinking. Like it gives you kind of it makes you question humanity sometimes, but at the same time, it makes you be able to say like, dang man, they were really had a skewed perspective or you can actually be able to, sometimes in some cases you can be like, dang, I can see how they could, you know, in their own little world, how they could arrive at those circumstances could make that type of a person. You know what I mean? So that has helped me a whole lot as far as like fleshing out some of my bad guy characters, and being able to kind of almost, even in the stuff that I don't put into the story, like the background stuff that I put in the story, it helps me to mentally understand where this person is coming from. I got a character who's a bad guy, and I was like, man, this dude is purposely, like, his whole backstory is purposely like a Netflix exclusive. Like, it would be a Netflix exclusive, but on the outside, he looks like Prince. You know what I'm saying? He looks like Prince, but you know, his bad guy backstory is like a Netflix exclusive, man. And it's all in my head. So, but it helps me inform me to go forward with the character, even though I don't put that stuff down, you know.
I do that too. Well, most of the characters I'm really into are like one note. I'm a big fan of Conan, Judge Dredd. So characters that are just kind of like one personality trait. And I always kind of like the idea of, you have these characters that are amoral. Well, Judge Dredd would consider himself moral, but that's an argument. But what would he do to break that? And so I just like amoral characters, and characters who, like when I wrote a cowboy named Hendershot in one of my stories. It wasn't even a comic book; it was a kid's book written like an adult book. It was weird, and it was an experiment. And he smokes and drinks and stuff, and yeah, I'm not really into that stuff, and so. But he's just kind of like this hustler and stuff. So I had to put my mindset into how, and so I just kind of based him off Al Bundy, because I thought Al Bundy was funny, and he just kind of encompassed that sort of like, you know, he's never going to win. He's always like the consummate loser. Yeah. There's always kind of a sense of humor too when I do my characters, like their backstory. Like, I don't think any of my characters are truly evil. And I think I give my stuff more for kids, so I kind of draw that back. Like, even when I wrote my Godlings, like, I remember one person read it, and he was like, well, this is weird. Your bad guys have actually a legitimate argument for what they're doing. And he's like, I almost kind of agree with them. I'm like, yeah, kind of funny that way, huh? And I was debating the philosophical issue. Yeah, I was debating the philosophical issue, so I wanted to do the feel that this king who was oppressing these people had a reason why to do it. And if you read my book, you'll figure out what that is. But I always like gray tones. I don't really think I have my characters are psychotic. I don't think I've written one that is psychotic. I think it's just like Noct is a barbarian, so he does barbarian thing. I guess he has his word moral code. But in my head, I just usually pick one trait that encompasses a character. So Noct's trait is he's always hungry. He's always looking for food. So he does whatever he can to get food. And so that's his one trait. So just think of a guy's constantly trying to get his next meal. And then you think, well, what would you do to get your next meal? And that's kind of how I write a lot of my characters, because I keep them separate in my head that way. Oh, this is their trait. That's their trait. That's their trait. And so, and then as I write, I kind of flesh it out. But I've always liked characters that are kind of like, Batman's almost kind of that way. Very stoic. He doesn't really break character. And I think they come more of an analogy of ideas more than a character themselves, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's why I've always got myself in my head, because I don't think I do half the stuff my characters would have done. Maybe the main character Boomer or my Godlings, maybe, but
you're not food focused.
What?
You're not food focused.
No, well, no. My young god Boom is a god of lightning and godlings, and I wrote this story just like, well, what if a god didn't want to be a god? Like, just didn't want to, because everybody thinking like in all the stories when you have the bad guys, like they want to be gods. I'm like, well, what if a god who was a god didn't want to be it? He's like, no, I want to go do my own thing. What impact would that have in the universe and the ruling? And so as he goes through that, he inadvertently kills thousands of people.
So you're just talking about
it's up to you to decide whether that was, but he does it for freedom. So there's that question. He does it, but he's trying to be free. So is it good, bad? It's up to you. So yeah, I like
Wasn't
to
it
ask.
Willem Dafoe who said somebody asked him if he likes playing good guys or bad guys, and he says, "Good guy, bad guy, it doesn't matter. Everybody thinks they're righteous."
Yeah, everybody thinks they're right.
So they can
even
figure
in
out
their
a
head,
reason why they're
wrong,
doing that
they're
thing.
Yeah.
They're the good guy of their own story, even if they're clearly not the good guy.
And
I've always been
Ashley
impressed with
Williams
people who
said,
can-
"Good, bad. I'm the guy with the gun."
Yeah, no doubt. I've always been impressed with people who can write truly evil characters because I don't know if I could do that. Like somebody like eating kids or something, like something truly beyond like, I'm like, I don't know if I could do that.
That's interesting.
But-
Yeah, it's a tough line to cross.
Yeah.
What about you, Chad? I think you're the only one who hasn't answered.
Oh yeah. So usually with me, I like making myself uncomfortable when it comes to writing my characters.
Nice.
Like when it comes
That's why
to
you hang
like
out with us.
what?
That's why you hang out with us, right?
The correct, yeah, because I like hanging out with old men. But so when it comes to develop my characters, I like making myself uncomfortable because, like John was saying, and everybody else said a little bit, it's like it would be stuff that I would never do. And I think that just makes it more fun to develop a character like that because I always find it boring. And if you take a piece of yourself and put them in a character, not saying we don't, because like Ginger, my character, she's one of them. She's very hyperactive, and I'm very hyperactive, and energetic. So I took that personality trait from me and give it to her. But Otis is the guy who will do anything to get the job done. Like in the first issue, I don't know why children's a topic right now, but he uses 12 sixth graders as bait to get out one of his enemies. And he's like, hey, I needed to do this to get the job done. And it was just that kind of thing. I know for a fact I would never actually do, but it was making me uncomfortable to write it. And I think that just helps me, one, kind of break out of that mindset of these characters need to follow my moral high ground. Like they need to follow my morality. I've also been the type to like the anti-hero. Like I love John Constantine. He's one of my favorites characters. So I like those guys who are like, they are willing to get the job done. I also just read a lot of stuff too if I'm trying to develop a character. So I read a lot of Hellblazer when I was doing Set the Hook. I watched Monsters Inc. quite a bit when I wrote Blue Lullaby. So it's one of those things where I also do research too. So so I just like, and then it looks like we have a question from the audience, which is kind of a cool question.
We do.
Do you visualize the look of each character before you write them, or vice versa? Do you find it easier one way or another? Well, actually, yeah, I visualize them first, and that's only because as a comic creator, I feel like we're all visual people, or maybe not. I mean, I don't know if David Whalen sees things differently, but he might see blobs.
I cannot see things in my brain.
Right, he can't. Maybe he just sees fog. I don't know. He's like some kind of Silent Hill thing. But I try to visualize my characters as I'm writing them and developing them. And one, that helps me play out. Okay, so this is gonna sound weird. When I'm developing a character, I like thinking of them as like I'm watching a movie in my head. And I visualize that character, and it might not even be the final concept of what I'm thinking of. It might just be, I might just put David Hasselhoff in my head, and that's Otis for a little bit, and just make them run through, and then I shape them to what it is. And I think I do find it a lot easier when I do that, instead of just like saying, okay, yeah, I want to make a character that is, I don't know, cool or suave. Like at least I'll have that visual of what exactly is cool and suave. Which is Pierce Brosnan.
Right, everything opposite of me.
Okay, right. Right, exactly. Like
I don't know about that, Aaron. I don't know about that.
That's what I write when I write cool and suave. I'm like, well, it's not me. So
well, it's that finding that archetype you're talking about. Visualizing somebody like Prince as a bad guy or Al Bundy. It's finding that archetype and then adjusting the archetype that you need for your story, right? Whether it's, and I think you make a good point there, is if you have two characters and maybe one is very conservative, another one's very liberal, right? How do you show that visually, but all clearly in their conversations and their interactions with each other, right? But how do you make those two characters seem realistic if you're a very conservative person, but you want to write a realistic version of a liberal, or vice versa? How do you get out of your own fog of what your opinion is, to be able to write those characters in a realistic way? And I think that finding a look, a visual of those characters is a great start to be able to figure out who they are on the inside also.
Yeah. Or if you want to make them a caricature of themselves too.
Right.
That just being able to visualize that gives you that idea. It's like, oh, is this going to be a parody character? But I feel like that's an entirely different situation.
We'll get to that.
we can get to that later. So we can talk about Grand Admiral Thrawn all day. So
yeah, strangely enough, I could answer his question and do I visualize it? Well, I'll tell you how I went about it. So by godlings, I asked the question, what if a god didn't want to be a god? And then I also like the idea of my minor in college is philosophy. I'm like, has anybody ever talked about philosophical stuff in a comic? Like direct philosophical stuff? And I didn't find anything, not to the degree I was looking at. So I'm like, could I do this? So I wrote about fate versus free will, which is mine. So the Godling started with a question, an idea of that. Not my comic I'm doing now was visualized, because I'm like, after drawing Godlings, I'm like, well, I like drawing Halloween stuff and I like drawing barbarians. Can I squish those together and draw both? And that's what I did. And I always had this idea. I like Ghost Rider, but I never understood why Ghost Rider is like, he had that chain, and I'm like, he needs a hook at the end of that chain. Like that just I don't know why. I always thought like he needs a hook that would make the whole Halloween hell thing perfect. So I was like, what if my barbarian guy had he had one hand cut off and he had a hook hand, but it had a chain that had come out in a chain like a whip.
So it's like
that's cool. So that was a gimmick. And then I just designed the idea, gave him the hook, and gave him his axe. And then I started thinking about Halloween. I was like, well, how can I adapt all these Halloween creatures to fantasy? So I did one where it was Jekyll and Hyde, but I made them a two-headed monster. One side's Jekyll, one side's Hyde, instead of switching to the same creature. And so the new one, I was like, how do vampires? And I was like, well, how do I'm trying to make spins on him so that the vampire now is made of blood. So he doesn't just suck blood, his bottom half is actually liquid blood, so he can almost like Iceman or Bid. So I was
that's cool,
playing on tropes. So it's more visual. So I think it just depends on the story what my goal is, whether I want to focus on the visuals. This one is just, I want to draw the stuff I want to draw, and that's it. The first is more philosophical. And my kids' books, I think, were more visually based too, or just weird ideas. My first one was about an alien wildlife photographer. He's an alien who photographs alien wildlife. I thought that was a cool idea, so I just drew this alien photographing the alien bird. And I'm like, this is cool, and I just wrote the book off that. So I like to draw backgrounds a lot. So my second kids' book was, I want to draw fantasy backgrounds, and I've always liked kids' books. I think Richard Scarry used to do these, where they hide lots of animals and lots of things within the book. And so my second book is what can I do to facilitate giant backgrounds for people to look at? And so I made this fantasy book about a goblin tour guide who takes this family on a tour of this fantasy land. And so that was it. So to me, it usually starts with a question, a concept of what I want to do, and just develop from there. I don't really think a lot about my characters as much as probably writers do. They're pretty one note. I don't know. There's not a lot of.
You don't sound one note at all.
Sometimes they're just there to move the plot forward in one way or another.
Sometimes I have that. I think I'm more plot driven when I write than character driven. I don't think there's anything wrong with either or. I just think depending on what you like.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the character, the plot itself could be the vehicle, or the character can be the vehicle. On whichever one moves the plot along. You could just throw your character. I think Day Tripper is kind of like that, if anybody's familiar with that book. It's the character is just there to push what's happening around. That's a very cool read if anybody hasn't read it before.
I feel like the Many Deaths of Layla Starr is like that too. Though she has some personality, but it's more a vehicle to talk about death and how it works.
I think another great example of that is something without a character arc is Marty McFly and Back to the Future. In number one, he doesn't have any kind of character arc. He doesn't
Not
get
really.
better. It just these things just happen to him. So, or he doesn't change at all as a character. It's everybody around him that changes for whatever reason. But they don't give him any kind of real arc until number 2 with the nobody calls me chicken thing, which kind of comes out of nowhere. But you understand why they had to do it, because he needed something else.
I heard
the first one
a
was
great
about-
podcast about Ghostbusters is the only movie without a character arc, but I never really thought about Back to the Future. Sometimes it just
the
works.
first
They're
one,
doing
it's
cool
his
stuff,
dad
and it's cool.
that has a character arc.
Right.
Yeah,
He's the best
And not
for his
him.
dad.
So the different, but then again, what his dad, then it affects his life. I would almost say the only one that really got more of a character arc was the third one. Doc had more of a character arc in the third one, and they still kind of ignored Marty. The second one was almost kind of a way to bridge the two in ones together. But yeah, Doc. The third one, strange enough, I like the other ones, but I always like the third one because I just like the idea of Doc falling in love. I just thought that was hilarious. I know something about that thing I thought was very endearing. And so, but yeah, it's weird. Now you think about it, they don't. And Ghostbusters didn't either, unless
I was gonna say Terminator.
Terminator.
The
The
Terminator
only one that
himself.
would be Terminator would be Linda Hamilton.
Yeah, well, it's also too the Terminator themselves didn't get a character arc until like the 8th movie.
Yeah.
Like other than that, he was just a vehicle.
That was probably the worst part.
Oh, it was terrible. The only good part about that was Gabriel Luna because he was hilarious. But they made he's an exterminator. Arnold Schwarzenegger's the robot that feels love now, and I'm like, come on.
Before we get too off the rails, I don't think Marthius has had a chance to answer.
Oh yeah, go ahead, dude.
Oh no, I was actually thinking about the Ghostbuster thing. The only person that I felt like that actually had a character arc in the first Ghostbusters movie was Winston, and it's just because of where he came from and where he ended up and what he ended up believing in at the end. He didn't believe in any of the ghost stuff at first. He just wanted a job.
Well,
and
to that point, if you hear him interviewed why he had a falling out with Ivan Reitman, is he had a bigger story and they cut him out.
Really?
Yeah.
He actually did have more involvement, and they cut those scenes.
Right.
And their explanation was like not great. So maybe they were like, "Hey, he's the only one who stands out," and we're just gonna make it.
Right.
I don't know.
Winston. I mean, Egon was my favorite, but I liked Winston. I always thought he was funny because he really is hanging out with a bunch of scientists who are awkwardly social, and he's the only sociable kind of acceptable one in the group. He's just looking for a job. He doesn't know anything about any of the crap they're doing. All the other ones are scientists. He's not. He's just like
he's really happy to be there
too, but he's the best one in Ghostbusters.
Yes, I actually had dinner with Ernie Hudson.
Oh really?
Yeah, I did. His son is weird.
his son is weird.
Well, so you're weird. So
I am weird, but he was talking to me about like how music is the cosmos and it's his job to pull the music from there and play. I'm like, he's high.
That's all right. Nothing wrong.
But no, I mean, no, he was very nice, but it kind of caught me off guard for a second. But Ernie Hudson's very nice.
Ernie Hudson.
I as far as like creatively, I do think a lot visually first, and I have a visual. I feel like I have to have a visual connection with the character before I start to even begin to hone in on who they are. So, that's but I think that also for me though, I don't have a I'm not a. If somebody told me, hey man, you got to sit down and write a novel, I would not be able to do it because it wouldn't keep my interest too long. I'm a very visual person, putting the words together. I see the pictures in my head almost as an anime or anime feature. So it's kind of like I have to be able to put the two together in order to be able to really effectively tell the story. So in that respect, I have to visually. I spend a lot of time coming up with visual concept and visual cues. I try to make my characters have visual tics about them that they do and things like that in the panels, like some things like they do that other characters don't do. You know what I mean?
Make them memorable and
right. They all like one character. They're all martial artists essentially. One of them specializes in kicks, so they do a lot of kicks. The other one uses more hand-to-hand techniques. One of them uses Aikido. The other one uses more Taekwondo techniques. One of them uses kickboxing, American kickboxing versus Muay Thai. So I'm going to be able to bring all that into visually into a piece. So
giving them all their own voice, but in a visual way. So even if it's a silhouette of the character,
right, you know who it is. Yeah,
you know who it is. That training school. Give them a silhouette.
Yeah.
Well, for me, the other only writer on the show, it depends. If it's really important to, you know, the character, like they're small and they're undersized and that's why they're, you know, shy or timid, you know, something like that, that often comes to me. I'm an emotional thinker, so I often think about the emotions of the story. And once in a while I'll get like, okay, this person really needs to be like this. But really I leave the description vague. And part of that is I've learned along the way is I'm working with people who their strength is visual storytelling. They want to be invested in it. Let them design the character. If they have questions, or again, if there's a certain character trait, like the lead in Drumsticks of Doom needed to be a woman because it's about you know, gatekeeping in metal and women aren't, you know, always welcome. That was clear
in metal
to Dan and I. There's like 3, or there was during that era that it takes place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's part of it, right? That was part of the hook of the story. But mostly left it up to Dan. And that really helps me, I found. You know, my current book, Winston Gambro, I let him design. What do the characters look like? Here's, you know, how I think they're dressed, because it's like this post-apocalyptic world. And seeing his pages come in helped me, because then I'm not chiseling out this character exactly and have their whole story. I get the story from his visuals and I'm like, oh, you know, he drew it like this, so this is how this person interacts, and you know, that I enjoy that part of comics, you know, that collaboration part. So I really do leave it pretty vague.
It's hard to, and I actually, to John's point, Wells Thompson told me when I was doing my writing, when I write my scripts, I can be kind of detailed, like on what's happening on the page. And Wells told me, don't make your artist feel stupid or bored. Because they're going to draw exactly what you... If you tell them to draw something exactly on the page, they're going to do it. But if you leave it vague, it gets their creativeness flowing. Yeah. And that has been a real challenge for me when it comes 100%. To leaving stuff vague.
That is 100% true. You want to... They have to be holding this object in their right hand because in the next scene they're going to throw it or something. You get that down, but...
Sure.
But yeah, you want to leave it open to them. And it makes it fun for me. Then I'm like, oh my God, that is not what I pictured. This is amazing.
Right. Like,
strangely.
Otis always slumped.
These artists haven't had, they know what's already in their head and then they put it down. That's boring. Like we get exciting every day.
Right.
I don't know. I like writing, but I like creating. Now this is for maybe the artists. Do you guys ever write characters, let other artists draw? I personally never have all my characters I design myself. And I always feel like this sort of sense of, I guess, greed, ownership. And I'm trying to think if I could ever write a story and give it to... It would have to be a story I wouldn't have a lot invested in. As an artist, if I wrote a story that I had a lot invested in, I guess I'd be greedy enough that I'd probably have to do it all myself. As dumb as that sounds, I don't know. Because I've worked with some other creators and I'm very picky. Was working with this comic and I liked my pages and I tried to explain the colors I wanted and the lady kept sending every color in the crayon box and I'm like, that's not what you need to do. And she wouldn't listen, so I gave up. And even the inker didn't do a good job. I mean, as an artist, I will say it is definitely a big... I've never been completely satisfied giving my stuff for somebody else to do. Every time I give something else, if they ink it or color or whatever, I'm never satisfied. And that's just me. I don't know if it's just me being picky or whatever, because I have that vision. I know what I want in my head. And it's just easier for me, as mean it is, just to take it and do it myself than to try to explain to somebody else my vision.
I don't think that's mean. I think that's being honest with yourself, right? You can try it maybe again in the future, but right now where you're at. And again, that's kind of just how you're conditioned, right? Because you're a visual thinker and that's okay, you know?
Right.
Why enter into something that where neither one of you are going to be happy in the end, you know?
Right.
With me, I think it's with me. I've been in the ad agency so much and I've played different roles in sitting in those creative meetings. So, and I know how much I love collaborating. That's just me. I love being able to see where somebody, if I give you something, if I give you a word or a phrase, that's one of the things that I teach a lot of times with my I do online classes with kids, and a lot of times I just give them, hey, this is your word, this is your phrase, this is your word, and this is your phrase. You have to come up with a character based on that word and that phrase. Sometimes I'll do it with a color, sometimes I'll do it with they'll switch up, somebody will come up with something and give it to somebody else. I just like being able to see collaborative effort in that way, because when it works, man, it is awesome. Like, it is very awesome. But when it goes south real fast. You know what I mean?
I think mine just went south, and it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. Maybe one day.
Like me, I've been in, like I said, I've been in to where, and it comes sometimes in the ad agency, it just comes down to being what's going to be most effective and move the project along. So somebody, a lot of times I'll work on something at the beginning or something, get it started off, and I can't finish it because I have to jump over to something else. So I end up giving it to the next creative down the road. But also, I mean, just like I worked on a book for IDW, and I did the pencils on it, and I was used to doing the inks, and I was like, man, I begged the editor to let me be able to do the inks myself. And they were just like, no, because, they had already had somebody contracted for it. So I was like, okay, cool. And I turned in my pencils, and I was not happy with the inks, man. I was just like, man, that's not how I see it. But at the same time, I knew that was that artist's kind of thing. That's what they were contracted to do. So I let it go. On my end, though, I have worked with some artists and stuff before where I've been like, hey, can you ink my work? And then they'll ink it, and then I'll be like, this looks cool, but can you, like, if they're working, especially now in the digital age, can you take down the thickness on some of these lines? And most of the time, if I'm very specific and not like, I try not to be super nitpicky, but if I'm very specific, like on certain things, like your outlines are going to get muddy, especially in the printing process. Your outlines, if they're too thick together, it's just going to make one big blob. And I know that. I'm just like, hey, man, take down some of these lines. You got a lot of detail, and all that detail doesn't need to be as super thick in your inking.
That not to give us another topic for another show, but that would be a great topic. The transition from analog. You've lived through the transition.
That's definitely a process situation that a lot of people would love to be able to hear more about.
Yeah, and that's got to be a great part of it. Right now, we can make those changes instead of having to redraw or write out.
At first, you would have to tell somebody that they would have to redraw it, and it will cost it's a domino effect. Everybody down the line will be, especially at the end, the colorists at the end, they would be upset. You know what I mean? But now it's like, it's almost like you can go in and be like, I'm gonna turn that layer off and just, is this better? Yep. Okay, cool. Boom. Send it on. A lot better.
Yeah. Strange enough, when I do my client work, I'm more satisfied with just, I let go of my client work and just whatever they want, I give them. So I think that's the reverse. So when it comes to my stuff, that's mine.
Right.
Yeah, this is what I do for other clients. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. Mm-hmm. So I let go there. But I have to have one area where it's like, it's my playground. No one else is invited.
Mm-hmm. I think that's all right. I can definitely see that if you're working in the, you don't want to get off the clock and be like, now listen to someone else tell me to do stuff. I get that.
I think it comes to, like, when it comes to developing the characters, like personalities and everything, that's mine. Yeah. Like, because I've had people be like, well, what if they both were sassy? And I'm like, well, no, that's not what I like. No. Like, Otis is an old and grizzled 24-year-old in his 40s, and Ginger's the hyperactive woman. Like, this is their personality traits. They're both not quippy or anything.
Right. So I think that can also be about ego also. Right, because you have to have some level of ego to be able to do what we do, to be able to think that, first of all, that you could do it, and second of all, that other people want to read it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So having that idea of I've got this idea, and everybody,
I'm better than you.
Shut up. Ego's digging it.
I
Yeah,
get you. We'll talk about toxic narcissism on
another
that's
one.
actually.
I think that was
actually
my nickname in high school.
Yeah, and again, not to housekeep here, but as we wind down, if anybody has comments, if you're watching this after on YouTube, again, I think we're up to 18 viewers.
Amazing.
We probably had about 25 unique viewers. That's amazing for our first show.
Yeah.
If you have ideas, topics you would like us to talk about, or things that you enjoyed about this first show, this was a lot of getting to know us.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of left it open, but we will try to have, more focused conversations in the future to kind of give people episodes they can kind of tune, back into later. But yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment, subscribe, let us know what you want us to talk about. We got about, collectively 100 years of experience here.
And we have about 5 minutes here. I think we're gonna keep it to an hour here, so we still have 5 minutes to be able to talk about something before we give our little sign-offs here. So if there's a question from the audience, or if one of you guys have a question that you think we can get to in 5 minutes, let's do it.
I have a rapid fire question.
Rapid fire.
Yeah, let's do it.
What genre do you suck at the most writing?
Oh wow.
Mystery. I can't write mysteries to save my life. I don't get it. I can write stories, but mysteries, how they put the pieces together and stuff and fit it all together, my brain don't work that way. Can't do it.
Mine would have to be straight sci-fi or any. I want to say sci. Well, not sci-fi. It's like that cross between sci-fi and horror. The horror sci-fi aspect. I'm better at visualizing and illustrating it, but not writing that the psychological aspect of it. I like to draw it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Sure.
I mean, I'll say horror. I have written horror comics. I feel like they were good, but I'm definitely, I'm of the Evil Dead school of horror and Army of Darkness. So I always want to break the tension with, a joke or, I need to get more dramatic.
Yeah. Nice. I would say that I'm on the kind of the same wavelength as Aaron there. Mysteries, while I love like noir thrillers and detective shows and things like that, to have a mystery, like a Sherlock Holmes type mystery where the clues are kind of laid out and then the viewer has everything they need to be able to figure it out as they go. I'd love to be able to do something like that successfully, but I think that's maybe would be the weakest genre that I have.
Well, we did get one audience question. Thanks for the participation, Bobby. If you think we can fit it in, we can fire it off.
Yeah, I think we can.
Oh, mine's romance, by the way. I'm absolutely garbage at romance.
Love romance. I love it.
I do too. That's the thing is I love romances. That's my favorite genre to read. But writing it, I'm just absolutely dog water.
It's not easy. People talk down on it. It's not easy to write a good romance. It's not, corny.
Or smutty.
Or schmuddy.
This is a very. I don't know if we could answer that in 5 minutes. It's a good question, though.
If we're a little more succinct with our answers, because we're just talking. So if we're a little more succinct with our answers, I bet we can.
Sure.
Well, I'll be succinct. I think a huge part of it is it's a visual medium without sound. Mm-hmm. Work with artists who have visual expressions, body language that aren't stiff with their characters, because you're going to rely on that. When you're trying to show that a character is downtrodden, they're going to have their shoulders slumped, they're going to be looking down. Like anime, they kind of overdo it, but all that is there in the visuals. But it also can be a pattern of making sure your characters sound different, which again, I'm not an expert at. Sometimes I have to go back and be like, oh, they're starting to sound a little similar. How would this person respond?
Not everybody's going to quip jokes.
Yeah, right. That'll help, right?
I personally think, because there is a balance of what you can tell somebody in text and visually. Mm-hmm. Like if I can tell somebody how they're feeling just based on facial expressions, I don't have to write it in text, and that gives me a better time to develop a personality or like something else in the panel. Also, too, cutting back your panels on what you can put in the panel versus what you can put between the panels as well. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like you don't have to show them completely reaching for that glass. You can do it in like 2 panels. Yes. So that's another thing that you want to take a look at too.
My thing, I always tell people, especially some of my students, is don't be afraid to let your actors act. You've got actors, let them act, man. You know what I'm saying? If you you're the director. You put the direction down. You make sure you have an artist that can help you to be able to make those actors act, and then you've got emotion. It's as simple as that. You know.
Get it.
I also. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. I was just making a one-off comment. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was the one trope things, but getting personalities to pop is playing off another person. So I had a scene when I introduced one of my characters, who's this god of the warrior spirit, a god of the warriors, and he wears this helmet, right? And you just see his eyes, and you don't. And so they're eating fruit. They're on this planet. They're eating fruit, right? And my god of lightning, he's like talking to this character. His name's Doom. He's like, I can't eat the fruit. And he's like, why don't you take your helmet off? And Doom just glares at him. He's like, yes, of course, blasphemy, taking the helmet off. So I just established Doom's character in one hit. Like, there's certain, like, you can conversation with another character. Don't ever be afraid to bounce. Like, I remember when they did Escape from New York, but Escape from LA, they said, well, Snake Plissken's such a cool character. We just want to throw as much crazy crap out of him and see how he'd react. And the more crazy crap they threw at Snake Plissken, the more his character was cemented. So sometimes other characters can pop your characters too, because your characters shouldn't exist in a void. They should be with other characters. So
I think it's important too to also know who your characters are before you start. Like, they can change and they can grow and they can, you can adjust here and there. But I think that having a succinct voice for each character, if you have 2, 3, 4 main characters, know how they would. What I like to do is I like to come up with a scenario, and then I'll just write down how each of them would react in that scenario, whether it's a big grandiose superhero thing or whether it's there's a mouse in the room, you know what I mean, like whatever it is. So I kind of have a vague idea, a gauge of how each character would act in a different situation. Would one make a joke? Would one run? Would one try to immediately stomp on the mouse? Would whatever they would do, to be able to have just a baseline for the characters and how they would react in a situation, to be able to build from there.
Nice.
Hell yeah, we did it. We're amazing.
We did it.
We did it.
Do we want to do a quick sign off just to remind everybody? I know we have all of our stuff, our links and everything in the comments and all that stuff, but do we want to just quickly again, reintroduce ourselves and then say goodbye?
Hi, I'm Chad. I'm from Rolling Squid Bones. I do Set the Hook and other stuff. You can find my stuff in the link tree below.
I'm John Westhoff. I'm the writer, publisher, letterer for Part-Time Comics. You can find me at the link tree below in the comments, or this one right beneath my face.
Writer, creator of Knock, that do all that, plus other comics. You can find me, I would assume, in the link tree below. Buy my stuff.
Perfect.
My name is Marthius Wade. I'm at Mall Productions, LLC.com. But you can look into the link tree as well. And you can go over to ToshikawaUniverse.com and be able to see our graphic novel line as well as our plushies.
Nice. And David Whalen, CollectChinaComics.com for our flagship title, The Offspring, and the other multiple titles we have. And don't forget about that link tree right there, y'all. And I think that anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that everybody just got Cosmos.
Yes.
Our ending tagline right there. That's got to be the hands too, like the punches.
You got
boxer guys. Yeah, Cosmos.
We're stepping it.
I quit.
We'll figure it out. We'll work on it.
All right, goodbye. I'm ending it now. So
Bye.
disgusting.